Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me. This is part 3 in the series where we're making the journal from brand new paper to completed journal out of Magic and Wonder by Echo Park. As I thought about it, I realized there are different ways that I make them now because I have a little more experience and ways that I want to show you. So I have a couple hours of footage and I've packed it into 25 minutes. So hopefully it makes sense. What I'm doing right now is taking apart cut aparts and using purple tape to tack them in. Then I found a sentiment that I liked, but I didn't like the scalloped edge on it with the polka dots. I just didn't think it worked. And as I go through the cut aparts, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make it less about a trip to Disneyland or Disney World and more about magic and wonder and joy and the good stuff in life. So I'm removing a lot of the things that say what a trip or the happiest place on earth. I've just set those aside. And I'm using my purple tape to tack things in where I think they'll go. This is a great way to do it if you're just learning and you're a little nervous. I'm going to show you later in the video tricks and pros and cons of it. When I'm making a journal now, I just start gluing things down. If I like a sentiment, I use it. If I like a piece of paper, I use it. I don't lay it out like this necessarily, but this is a good way to learn. So those vertical strips that I'm taping in, those are going to be pockets, vertical pockets, and I'm going through and I'm looking at all sorts of the papers and trying to figure out what's on the back. Now I slowed that down because I wanted to make sure you saw that. These are cut aparts, and I am cutting them apart right now because the back of the paper is the front of the collection pack at Tuesday morning. It's the packaging. So I know that I need to use those as cut aparts because I don't like the other side of the paper. Then I slowed it down so you could see this. On the branding strips, it says Magic and Wonder, and it has the little castle and the stars. So if you want tiny accent pieces for pages or cards or anything like that, there are a whole bunch of them in your paper. I typically don't keep the part that tells me what the paper line is, but I did notice that in Happy Mail recently, I think it was when Susie sent me her pocket letter, she tucked the branding strip in there so I would know what paper collection it was. That is kind of a neat idea. I've just never done that for anybody, but I did think, oh, that's a good idea. Here, I'm trying to figure out, I think I want to do a pocket with something a little different, and I'm experimenting with the papers. And part of it is I liked that stripe, and I was trying to decide if I was going to play it up or go a different direction. And then sometimes I just say, that's enough. I fiddled with it. I'm going to put it together. Make a decision. Here, I liked the die cut, but I wanted another layer on it, and I have those dies in various sizes, so I just grabbed one off the wall and put it on there, and then some purple tape to remind me what we're doing later. I tried not taping things in, but they just fall out and get messy. So now when I'm going along by myself, I just make it as I go. And I don't work front to back. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I like to skip around, and it's because your style changes. If you work on this journal for a week or two, you're going to find different stuff in your room. You might use all of the same product or too much of the product in the first half of the book, all sorts of things. Here, these cut aparts are from the package, and I don't like the cut apart. I didn't love the bow tie. It's very Disney, so I bagged those. The one that had a nice back on it, I kept and left it out. But the ones I knew I did not want in my book, I took out. While I had the camera off, I tidied up all my scraps. I don't know if it looks more tidy, but I went through, I got all the branding strips cut down. I took out everything that had like hanging weird sections, and I've merged my leftovers from my last kit with this kit. So my guess is a bunch of these little strips, these are left over from last time because I cut my pages a different size, so I had a lot of 1-inch strips. So if I'm using scraps that you don't have, that's why, and you can think about if you want to make them. And I sorted things into anything that's long enough to be a strip on a page here, so what, we're probably 8 inches, I put in here. Anything that wasn't long enough, I just put in here for next, like card making, scrap cards. Then I started in the last section. You saw that I was taping things in. I haven't put anything else in the book. Then I laid out the sections that are wide enough to do bands up and down and started looking at which ones I like. In my experience, now there's nothing wrong with that at all, but in my experience, if I just take a piece of paper like this or a 1-inch strip and let me grab one and show you a cute one, so that'll help. And I grab this and I put it on here. It's a nice tuck spot. I glue the ends down, but I'm underwhelmed by it. I don't love it. So what I was looking for is what strips do I have to work with and how could I dress them up? So I can take a 1-inch strip and use one of my 1/2-inch ones. And it doesn't even have to be the full length. I think this one's 8.5, and put it in the center, and it just adds a little something. If I'm doing a junky journal, I'll start a little wider with this one and give it a torn edge. I really love the torn edge ones, but I don't know. In this album, the colors are so clean and the style is so clean. You know, it's very geometric shapes. I'm just not going to junk it up. I think those two I will like together. I like the dots playing off each other. I'm not going to put it on this page, but that's one of the ways that I start to think about it, is which ones are strips that I want to use on the page, because they're already, you know, about the right shape and before I go cutting things down more. Then in putting together this video, my point for this section that we're doing now, part 3, is to show you variety of things. So that when you flip through your journal, the journals that I have found that I have the most enjoyment on are the ones where I use variety. This is going to become what I would call a vertical pocket. This will be a horizontal pocket. Then I showed you that we're going to put some bands down the pages. Then I think it's nice, I might have started one, I think we did. I think it's nice to have some tuck spots and some things that flip out and variety in shapes. I don't know where they are. Here's one. So this one, I'm going to make this one flip out this way. We could make it flip up. I like to have some pockets that are angled, maybe a tuck spot up there. I think the more variety you have, so that when you turn your page, you don't have a horizontal pocket and a vertical pocket on every page. Then the other thing is, you probably don't want to put a big pocket like this on every page, because on some pages you might just want to take something and, let me flip this, like this, and have a big like ephemera cluster, or you might want to have a family photo. So you don't want to take up every single page with big pockets, but you want to have interest. The reason I'm taping these through is I'm showing you how to do it kind of the slow way. Now, when I'm making a journal, I just start at the beginning and start gluing stuff down and stapling things on and see what happens. If you're making one for the first time, or if you're worried that you don't have enough paper that matches, you can use your purple tape or washi, or you can just tuck them in there and lay them out in the journal. What happens to me if I'm short on paper is I start at the beginning and the back of the book gets a little boring. If you're just starting one for the first time, but you don't want to take the time to lay it out, skip to the back and do some of those pages too. Don't just work from front to back, because otherwise you get down to the back and you just don't have very many paper scraps to work with if you're using a Tuesday morning collection pack. Now remember, I'm using extras from one before also, so I probably have plenty, but that's just something to keep in mind. Now I'm just going to go back to working, and then I'll put a voiceover on it later. Now I'm gluing that band together. You can call them tuck spots, you can call them bands. I'm only gluing at the top and bottom of the page so that you can tuck papers under it. You can also glue them down completely. I think I've done that on some of them. You can use ribbon to decorate it. You can stitch on it with your sewing machine, whatever you want to do to dress it up also. Remember, if you stitch on things, you probably want to stitch on the top layer like faux stitching and then glue it down, so that when you're tucking stuff in and out, the stitching doesn't catch on it. But if you forget to do that, that's okay. So you notice I just put the adhesive on the top and the bottom because it's not just a decoration, it's also something that you can tuck things into. And I do a lot of those. Here's something that I forgot to tell you that I did that is a really good idea to do. These were the cut-aparts that were the back of the package. So what happens to me sometimes is these get mixed in, and then when I want to have decorative cut-aparts that people could journal on the back of to tuck into a page, I don't have them because I have glued this one down. So what I did was I cut these apart, and the ones that I did not want at all are in that other bag, and the ones that I think I want to use, I've set right here. I've prepped them. I tidied them up off camera. This one I rounded the corners. I cut off all the, where you don't get it quite right and the red from the other one shows. And then I put them in here and stood them up. So I know these need to be glued down, or they need to be a pocket of some sort so that you don't see the back. Not a flip and not a tuck spot. So these right here, these are pretty on the back. That was just one thing that I've never sorted them like that before, and I should have, because I get down to the end and I have ugly ones for your tuck spots, and then I don't want to put them in there. So this one I just put right here, and of course I can move it around later, but this is a nice one to leave in there as a journaling card because the back is light enough that you could write on and still read it. I've moved on to another page and I'm preparing another tuck spot band. This one's a little wider, and I had a wider strip in the middle too. Again, I just don't like them to be all exactly the same. If all of my scraps were exactly the same and I was really tight on paper, then I would probably have more similar ones. Like when I made the Cardabella Christmas journal, I made some of the cards, so I had used up some of the paper, so I didn't have a lot of the paper to work with. But in this case, I do. If you wanted to make, like, I don't know, a gift set for somebody and you wanted to make cards and a journal, then you would have to be more careful about how much paper you use in your layers. But at this point, I don't have to worry about that. It was a little long, happens to me all the time, just trim it off. Better to be a little long than a little short, because sometimes when they get, your adhesive gets off a little and you set it down. Okay, now this one I mentioned before that the back isn't cute, so it has to be a pocket. I also could layer it. I could have layered it on another piece of paper, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm going through all my scrap bins. I just wanted to show you that just because I make videos doesn't mean I have it all figured out. So what I thought was I would find another big piece of that basil with the red polka dots that I like in this collection. I like to use it with this collection, and then I would layer it and maybe make it a tuck spot instead. But I couldn't find it and I gave up. Then I'm flipping through and moving some of the things around. So that's what always happens to me. If I tape this stuff down, I just move it later, right? And I found this quote that said, "Laughter is timeless, imagination has no age," and then there was a comma. I just took the comma off. And I was going to put it on that page. I didn't like it on that page at all, so I started looking around for more contrast. I always like contrast. So I decided to put it on a light piece of paper. You notice I switch adhesives a bunch. It's because I like to use art glitter glue if it's when I'm putting down a sentiment or that kind of thing, because it gives me that extra second to move it. This red tape that many of you just swear by from Tuesday morning, it is thick and very brutal. I mean, it is much less forgiving than the white tape even, and those little red bits make me crazy. But I was trying them. Sometimes I had to edit a little because I got my head in the way. Sometimes you couldn't see it all. But I just put that sentiment. Sometimes I dress up my pockets. Like, you'll notice they're very plain at this point, but I'll dress them up with stickers. I'll dress them up with a little bit of fussy cutting, which I have done for this. You guys were encouraging me to fussy cut on some other stuff, so I've been doing it. Those balloons in the upper left, they didn't cut themselves out, people. So you can see I've put down a whole bunch of those pockets, and I'm assuming that you're a paper crafter, so you have adhesive and a paper cutter and you know how it works. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it to the third video in this series. but I probably should put something on the screen. I'll go back and do that, a disclaimer that says, at this point, we're not really in full tutorial mode. I'm just giving you ideas on how to decorate. Now, when you put your big pocket in the front of your journal and any of those horizontal ones, be sure and check it first, because if you got off at all, it'll be too big and your journal won't shut quite right. And I do like having a big pocket like that in the front, or a tall pocket. I'll show you one of those later. Magic and wonder spoke to me and there it went. Sometimes that's how I decide what goes where. But I like to have those big pockets in the front and the back because I think they help stabilize the cover a little bit. The Echo Park paper is good, but it's not the absolute sturdiest. Okay, I stamped on the back of this to add interest because, and then I slowed it down so you could see how I work in a journal that's already sewed together. If you want it to go off the edge, just use some scratch paper. That velvet paper is wonderful. It's velvet, polka dots on the one side, but the back was just too plain, and because that tag was white, I was trying to add some interest. So again, I'm putting that piece of paper underneath and then just stamping right there so that I can have some interest, because white on white was too much for me. Then I couldn't take it. I had to ink the edges. I'm keeping this journal fairly clean and tidy, but it was so plain. I couldn't glue a piece of white paper on a piece of white paper and not ink the edges. So there's that one spot. So Pooh Bear's awake. We'll just have to work through that. Yeah, poor girl. You okay, old lady? Yep. Here I'm zoomed in so you can see my adhesive, but you know how this goes by now. Put adhesive, if you're making a pocket, put adhesive on 3 sides and glue it down. If you're making a tuck spot, just do the ends. This one, I got it a little short, so I'm confessing to you so you can see. Don't panic if you do that. I could take my ink dauber and ink that black so that the little white specks would blend in better, but I just took some scissors, trimmed it, and then sped you up again. Okay, this one, a couple of things. A, I was going to make that a tuck spot, but it was ugly on the back and I forgot about it. And B, that is what happens with the purple tape if you tear it at the edge of the paper. So it's fine in the middle of the paper, but if you grab it at the edge and you don't tear it right, I'll show you how to do it a little bit later in the video, you'll tear your paper. It will catch on the very edge. So on this one, I mounted it because the back of it was the packaging, but I didn't actually use it as a tip out in the end. I was going to, and then I didn't. I just made it a pocket so it doesn't show anyway. I could have made my castles right side up and still used it. So if you have a journaling card that you just love and you want to use a tip out, just cover the ugly back of it. Okay, watch me peel the tape. Go from the inside out slowly. Don't grab the edge and pull it because it will rip the tape. Watch again. Inside out, slowly. So if you're going to use the purple tape to lay out your journals or anything, be careful. The other thing I do is I don't trim down my cut aparts when I lay everything out. So if the edge does tear a little bit, it's not the end of the world. It's not like I've spent a half an hour layering everything up and getting it all perfect. Now I'm trying to show you, it doesn't show very well. See the dirt? It's from the tape, has a little bit of goop. Then I got this eraser out. Rewind or slow me down so I sound like I've been drinking or something, whatever you need to do. This adhesive pickup square by iCraft is the best gadget ever. That and a sand eraser. Those should both be in my Amazon shopping link down below. I don't have very much stuff in there, but I need to add both of those items because what I did was I just took that little eraser and took that adhesive. The purple tape left a little bit of gunk. So that's another reason. I think it was the purple tape. I didn't double check the spots, but I'm sure it was. That's another reason. Just put your journal together. Don't tape it. It's also just way more fun to just go with it. It's more like mixed media and art journaling or gel printing where you just see where the day takes you instead of planning it. Now, I don't know why I'm flipping around so much, but I do that a lot. Then I changed my mind. I didn't like that one where it was. mostly because this page was still so white and I was trying to figure out what to do with it. But that's what happens. If I lay it all out, I change my mind anyway, because maybe I ended up with too much. If you do make a journal with this specific collection pack, be careful, because the same sentiments appear so many times that if you're just looking at color and size, you will put the same words like 2 pages in a row. Okay. Always believe something wonderful is about to happen. It's a white scalloped edge on a plaid, so it doesn't show. It doesn't have a nice edge, like they didn't put a border on it. I thought about fussy cutting it, but I couldn't even see it well enough to put a border to do that. So I just decided I'm going to cut it down. And this one is a little interesting. So if you're looking for an idea that we haven't done yet, this one is. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a layer out of this striped paper. And that sentiment is going to be a tip up. So you could write little notes behind it. You could stick in a cute little picture. You could flip it up and write on the very back of it. I'll show you. Okay, I took the striped paper and sewed with my sewing machine on it. This journal, I mean, it needed a little something. It's not too junky, but I had to. And then after I made this, I thought maybe I should have put this on the cover, but I don't think so, because the cover is pretty busy. So washi tape, any washi that you want. It's nice if it matches, but it's not going to show. And then I add a touch of glue. And what you're doing is you're folding that washi. So I'm trying to get a good crease on it. Then I had to go find the glue because I didn't put it away after my journaling class. Little tiny bit of glue in there. If the other side comes off later, put it on there too. But I usually just do one to start. Then, because this has stitching and because it was handy because I had it out for my journaling class, I used the 1/2 inch red tape, because you're going to have a tip up and there's stitching. There's just a lot going on. So I wanted to make sure it was on there really well. And then I'm going to rub it on and then see. So you could put a picture behind there or you could write on the back. Sorry, I should have let you look longer. At this point, I realized there were things I needed to show you and this video was getting too long. So I thought about some things, then turned the camera on and made them. This is what I would call a tall pocket. Okay, I have my 4-inch strips of paper and I run them up the side. You could use, I'm showing you different ways you could decorate it. You could ink the edges, you could use a die, you could use your pinking shears. I didn't do any of that in this journal, but in other journals I would. If this was a Christmas journal or a holiday journal, I'd have a bunch of lacy edges and all kinds of stuff. I thought about putting a second layer on my pocket, but I decided to wait because I haven't used any stickers. I haven't figured things out. That's the corner that we cut off the other page, and I just shortened it up a bit because I didn't want it so sprawling. That's the old dog. She's up and moving around. And so this is just a tuck spot up in the corner. Believe it or not, you can tuck things in there and they stay, and it works pretty well. And I liked using that same paper. And then this is a lot of yellow for me. So I thought I'd come in with this sentiment that has yellow, but also has this blue border to ground it a little. And then I thought maybe I wanted one on the other side. This one spoke to me and it said, glue me down right here. And then like a minute later, I realized I had an idea for this page. That's what that blue flag up there means. But I still love it. You're never too old to wish upon a star. I still had one piece of paper that somehow had been missed and not cut. And it's that plaid on the back, which I don't love. So I'd been trying to decide. But I decided to use these to show you a tip out because we did the first one inside the cover, but that was a tip up. And these are so easy, you're definitely going to want to put them in. So it's the same idea as the front tip out, except the corners are rounded, so I'm trimming it a little bit narrower. I don't want to go all the way to the edge or the tape will show. Then I'm putting a little adhesive. This is a way easier one because you can feel when it clicks, essentially like you're butting it right up against the page. So you just butt it up against there, rub the tape down flat, and then flip it closed. And then it's super cute. And you can open it up, you can put pictures, whatever you want to do. One idea that I couldn't fit into this video was envelope pockets, which I have another video on, so I'll link to that in the description. I'm not sure when I'm going to finish, but I will show you my final journal. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.